Welcome to the Glow Zoomcast. I have Cara Zelas with me here today. Cara is over in New York. I'm in California, and Cara is joining us to talk about early childhood development and ways that we can support our kids at home and also support ourselves during this time, because it is challenging when you're not an early childhood education specialist. Cara has been a teacher. She also has developed a line of children's books that includes a curriculum that focuses on social and emotional development called Big World of Little Dude. And Cara, thank you so much for being with us today to talk about this stuff.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having us here today to talk about education, social and emotional learning, and how to continue learning at home over the summer.
It is such an interesting time right now as schools all over the country are starting to segue out of their remote learning and into summer programming or no programming at all. And parents start to look forward to the fall and wonder how they're going to make plans, because there really are no plans to make at this time. A lot of parents are facing what could be a whole other semester or even a full year of remote learning in the fall. And I know I've talked with a lot of our clients and a lot of my friends who have been trying to figure out how they can occupy their kids and continue the trajectory of positive development as we move into these summer months. What are some things that you can tell us about how we could set up our homes and sort of activity centers for our kids' development?
Sure. I think I would like to first start with saying that you have to be gentle with yourself. I think there's so much pressure put on parents to be wearing so many hats at the moment. And I think that you have to have more of a realistic expectation of like what you can actually achieve in one day. Like there's a lot of other stresses going on, like whether it's from work or lack of work, or so there's just a lot going on. So I think the first thing is to be gentle with yourself. It's just like if someone said to me, you're going to go to the fanciest restaurant in New York City and now you have to be the head chef. It's like, I'd be like, I don't know what to do. I'm not a chef. Yes, I cook some meals every night, but I couldn't serve a Michelin star restaurant. Just like you are not a teacher, you can't all of a sudden be expected to teach your children like they do at school. So I think you have to remove that expectation and that pressure that you put on yourself, that you have to recreate the classroom experience. I think it's all about trying to like, what's your strengths, what's your child's strengths, and what can you do around your home to create like a learning environment that's maybe leans on more practical things. I guess it also depends on the age of your children. Older children can be more self-directed if they're tuning into a Zoom, but the younger children need more guidance. And then something that we do in our home is that we work with like practical things that are in the house, like whether it's folding washing, helping put away the dishes, tidying up the toys, washing things like in the sink. So it's just trying to like get your child to learn more practical things that they may not learn at school. So opportunity to bond with your child through play that way. So yeah, I think there's, I would say the first thing would be to take the pressure off yourself.
Yeah, I think it's so hard to try to emulate what you imagine a classroom looks like, because, I mean, really, so few of us even have had the experience of teaching. It makes me feel so good to talk to you about this, especially as somebody who has run your own classroom before for years, for small children, to understand that there are things. I mean, you have a Montessori education background as well, right? And core of the Montessori program, my kids are in Montessori school also, is that the practical can be in itself the conduit to the learning. So it doesn't have to be a special workbook or anything like that. Like it actually can just be folding the laundry or cooking something.
Yes. And then also it's like, I also, if it's possible, take it outside and be in nature and be active. So I would say as well, movement is really important. I work with children that are 3 to 6, so that preschool age, and even, I mean, any age really, movement is very important for development. And so that's something that also burns energy. because otherwise, if you're sitting all the time, you become sedentary. I think it's really important to get children moving, and you don't even need anything outside. You can just take your child to the park. They can play with sticks. They can make mud. Like, you don't even need equipment. Just take your child outside, whether it's a nature walk. I bought my daughter a magnifying glass, and we made binoculars out of toilet paper rolls. And you can just have something really simple as going for a walk and maybe collecting some rocks to paint, or, give it a purpose in a way. But I think movement is really, really important. I know a lot of people have been stuck inside, but I think now that sort of there's restrictions starting to lift, I think being outside, getting some vitamin D and burning off that energy over the summer is going to be really important.
How important is it to have a routine or some kind of flow to your day? I know that at the beginning of quarantine, there were all these Instagram posts of people with, making Post-it schedules and things like that. What does that look like in your house? And what would you recommend to somebody, even if somebody's not really like a routine person? Why is that so important for little kids?
Kids thrive in structure. It's not to say that it has to be strict, but children thrive when they know when things are happening. There's not an element of surprise, and so they know what to expect. And then you can have flexibility within that structure. So maybe have your day as, this is like the ritual we have for breakfast. These are the things that we do. Oh, my daughter has a glass of water, and then she has her vitamin, and then we make breakfast together. And so you can just have the rituals that are the same every day, and then you could have lunch and dinner sort of around the same times, and that's kind of your goalposts. I always find that doing work, any kind of work, is better in the morning, because your child's had a full night of rest. They've had something to eat in their tummy from breakfast, and that's when their brain is going to be the most absorbent, and you're going to get them to concentrate the most. And as the day goes on, the more tired they get. So they're going to have less patience. They're going to have more resistance to sitting down and doing whatever work is going to need to be done. So I always get my work done early in the morning when they're at their freshest, and I find that is helpful. And then we spend the afternoon outside. So that's kind of our routine every day. And we do things kind of at the same time. So yeah, children thrive in structure. And then within that, there's freedom to, today we're going to go for a nature walk, or we're going to go for a swim, or whatever it is. There can be freedom within that, but that things happen in a rhythm every day.
Is there a way to set up your home so that there's a more natural flow through that schedule? Or even, I know for a lot of parents who are working at the same time as they're also full-time parenting right now, what are some ways that you can set up little areas in your home to at least start to invite or introduce the idea of maybe a little bit of independent play, and then also play that's either parallel between two children or with you and your child?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm the type of person that is type A and that needs to have everything put away and in its place, but this is unprecedented times. So what I do is I set up zones of work. So there'll be, and it's what my daughter enjoys doing. So you kind of have to, create it for your child's enjoyment of what they engaged with doing. So we have an arts and crafts table set up, so that there's paper and pencils and markers and glue and everything's set out. So if I have a phone call or I need to attend to my other child, I can sort of set out the paper and be give her a bit of direction, and then kind of let her free create. It's the same with blocks. You could do a Lego station where you could have everything kind of set out, and maybe some prompts. Maybe you could have a doctor's kit out, or you could make up a little teddy hospital. I mean, you can just, and kind of lead the play, or dress up corner. So really just what is it that your child is into? Or is it a train set? You could do painter's tape on the floor and have the trains all set up. So you can have these sort of zones. So when you need to have a break, or you have a phone call or something else that you need to attend to, that you can say, gently guide your child to work in these zones.
It
And
takes so much of the effort. I think about inertia, and that the biggest expenditure of energy and emotion is moving from one thing to another. It's actually starting the motion. And it's the same with kids and projects, right? If you're going to sit down and you're going to have them start something new, if you then have to get all of the materials out, clean up the materials from the last thing, it takes so much more energy and time. And it means that for the parent, that time and energy can't go towards something else, even if that something else was going to be relaxing for 3 minutes, doing, looking through your phone or doing something that's like realistic, to make you feel better at that moment. So I really appreciate those suggestions. What? Mhm.
another tip, if your child has trouble like doing self-directed play, just work at it. Like your kid, especially if they're young, all of a sudden overnight they're not going to want to sit there for 20 minutes by themselves doing a work or doing a project or art or whatever it may be. Like you just have to build up to it. So maybe it's 2 minutes one day, 3 minutes the next day, and kind of have it built up. And like when they come and ask you a question, kind of direct them to, oh, I wonder how that would work, and like kind of put it back on them, rather than like always being the person that, oh, I need this, or, oh, isn't that on the table somewhere? You can kind of put it back on them to figure it out, to give them that problem solving skills. And you could also use a timer. You could put out a timer and be like, when this timer goes off, you can come and ask me a question. And kind of, you can do, 3 minutes one day and then put it up to 5 minutes the next day, and kind of make it like a competition, and see if they can work until that timer goes off. Because I know that for a lot of young children, it's hard to do self-directed play, especially if your parents are sitting there right next to you. But sorry about that.
Fine.
Yeah, you could try that.
Awesome. That's a great suggestion. I love the timer. And your work with Big World of Little Dude and your children's book series and the little plushy figurines that go along with your characters and the workshops that you do for parents and for children have been really important for my children, as they've been growing up in New York City, to help them understand ways to think about the world and think about their sort of social network, how they can take care of their friends' feelings and their own feelings, how they can talk about their own feelings, how they can tune in with themselves and sort of quiet themselves. I know that this time is really challenging for parents and for children, especially for kids who are really young and can't really express sort of the anxieties that they're picking up on, because they're just little sponges, right? They are the canaries, and they tell us when things are getting tense. And so I know that a lot of people I've spoken with are noticing behaviors in their children that they haven't seen before, and that it's hard to talk to little ones about their feelings. Do you have some suggestions for how we can invite those kinds of conversations with our kids?
Sure. I would say if your child is having a moment, don't address any issues or have a serious conversation in that moment. Let them have those emotions. And then maybe later on, you can reflect upon what they were going through at the time. And I think even for young children, like try and name the emotion. So if they're feeling happy, frustrated, angry, sad, kind of talk to them about what each feeling is and give it a name. And also put it back on you in a way to say, oh, I also sometimes feel frustrated. So I understand, like when this happened to me, I got frustrated. So I understand how you feel. So you kind of have that empathy loop of, I understand what you're going through. And it's also okay to have lots of feelings. Like adults have lots of feelings. I think about even today, I've like been happy, sad, frustrated, excited, I mean, all in one day. But because I'm an adult, I can self-regulate. But as a child, they're just trying to like figure out what all those feelings mean, and they're trying different hats on. Like, what happens if I get really angry at this? So I think like giving the names and then talking about it later when they're calmer, like, oh, I saw that you got really frustrated or angry or upset about this. And just have a little conversation in a quiet moment. I find like when I'm putting, my kids to bed, that's always a nice moment, because like they're relaxed. Okay, maybe they're a bit tired or if they're not in the mood, like, yeah, don't have that conversation. But sometimes it's nice in that quiet moment or like go for a walk where it's just the two of you and you're really engaged with them. Like you're not on your phone trying to have the conversation, or you're not distracted. Like make sure that, you know, you're engaged with them, and also like get on their eye level. So when they're having a moment, like get down to their eye level, get on your knees, look them in the eyes, tell them, you know, that you understand what they're going through and it's okay.
Yeah, that really resonates. Especially right now, we're all so distracted. It's such a weird experience to be in one limited environment, but especially for those of us who are working and parenting at the same time, there are so many there, you know, the schedule's out the window. So you're working when you normally wouldn't be working, you're parenting when you normally wouldn't be parenting. And so it's so suddenly it's like the veil is totally lifted, and my phone is around all the time, where it never would have been before. I would have opted to keep my phone to the side unless I said, you know, mommy's going to do some work right now. I'm going to go do some work on my phone. I'll be back, so that there was a clear boundary between my interaction with them and now I'm using my phone for this purpose. It's not just me deep diving into, you know, social media. As much a boundary for me as it was for them. And it's now like that's all out the window. You know, it's all happening all the time at once. So just taking the moment to stop, focus, and be with them in that moment so that you are present for the communication is such a great reminder that that really opens the conduit for that communication.
And then like a little bit goes a long way too. It's like you do have other things going on. So again, go back to the beginning of like, don't be so hard on yourself. Like you're trying to do a million things at once that you're not normally doing. Like I think now that we've gone through this whole 2 or 3 months of getting used to it, I think, I mean, from the, you know, my community of people I'm talking to, it's like you're getting into a groove of things. Yeah, there's still all this noise and craziness going on, but I think you're getting into more of a routine. But yeah, I do think that just giving them those moments, like it's quality over quantity in a way. So it's just like being really engaged with them, that you choose to. And yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah. There's definitely more of a flow now. It feels like this week is like kind of a down week again. I mean, there's so much happening that is just feeling like, that just feels like this week has a good amount of like heaviness and despair that last week didn't have as much of. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the next few months evolve for everybody.
Right. And I think there's a lot of anxiety about September, what's going to happen. There's no clear messages. And I think it's the unknown. I mean, I think if they were told, oh, September, we're 100% going back and everything will be fine, but there's like this unknown.
Mm-hmm. Or September, we're definitely not going back. And so, you know, I don't know how it's going to work if they're doing alternating schedules, either every other day or half the day for half the class and half the day for the other class. I don't know how that's going to work for parents. And it really is a logistics situation. I think for a lot of parents, that's not going to be feasible. I don't know how people keep, you know, working and keep their jobs in those circumstances.
It's almost easy to keep your child home because at least you're not like getting them to school or back. You have less stress of them being exposed to other children. I mean, that's why we're choosing to homeschool, because it just seems less stressful for the first half of the year, because there's so many unknowns. At least if I have a home, I can plan. And if things do go crazy, like we still are on our routine that we've been doing since September.
Yeah, exactly. Like I now feel like I know my strengths and weaknesses as like a support teacher for the remote learning teachers. And I feel like I figured out how to kind of support where my weaknesses are. And I feel like if I had to do this again next year, I could figure out how to do it. It would be like its own fresh hell, but we could get it done. And that there is something that feels actually empowering about that. I have to say, like, that's kind of where I'm at in this process as a parent and as a working parent. I'm like, okay, got it. I have now figured out the bare minimum I need to do for my work to not just sustain it, but to actually continue to move it forward in this super challenging time for a small business. And I've also figured out exactly what I am capable of doing with my kids in a way that keeps us all healthy and happy for now. Summer, we'll see what happens. But I'm hoping that other parents are sort of starting to find some solid ground in that way too. Um,
I see it as like, for me personally, it's like a silver lining in a way, because I would never have spent this time with my daughter doing all the activities that I am doing with her. And I get to see what type of learner she is. Like, it's, you can't miss it when you're working with your child. And I think that's a gift, because you send your kid off to school and you're like relying on the teachers to tell you on the parent teacher evening twice a year, like how your child is doing. But when you're doing it at home, I can see, oh, my daughter rushes through things. How can I help guide her to slow things down? And it's like, you can see it. So I feel like in some way it's been like been a gift for us, um,
mhm.
personally. And even though it's so crazy, I just try and focus on the positives and be grateful for all the things that we have. And I try and focus on that and kind of try and tune out everything else as much as I can.
Yeah, I think it's so wise, and I think it's crucial for our psychological survival right now. It is.
Kids are adaptable, probably more than adults. Adults are more stuck in their ways, whereas kids are more adaptable and they're more resilient than we give them credit for as well.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And I mean, the younger the child, the more adaptable they are. My 3-year-old is thriving in quarantine. He is like, you built this world for me. This is amazing.
Think about it, like, you're around all the time. Like, you would never be this much around your kids ever. And like both, I mean, if you're, you know, in a partnership, like both of you at home, it's like a rarity in our house. So we're trying to see it as a gift and something that's precious. And this won't go on forever. And it will go back to being in school and my husband traveling so much. So I'm just trying to, like, in those tough moments, be like, this is just a moment in time, and try and see the positives rather than focusing on the negatives.
Yeah, I got that. That is helpful. Cara, thank you so much for having this conversation today and for giving us these great tips about our homes and about how we can interact with our kids and take care of their social and emotional needs at this time. We can find you at bigworldoflittledude.com. Is that right?
That's
Can
right.
we get, And tell us more. Where can we get your books?
You can purchase them online at worldoflittledude.com and follow us at World of Little Dude.
Awesome. Thanks, Cara. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.